Good evening yet again. Tech, and all the time we've been talking about this, space through the day. Everybody, the buzzword has been AI, new technology. And what we want to really understand from you, sir, His Excellency, if I could start off with you and understand, how are you really looking at driving innovation and looking at the world which is fast changing even before we can blink an eye?
Thank you very much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be in this event. I think technology is the new, let's say, oil of this place, and I think it is a critical path for UAE that is chosen to really go into the next 50 years. And as a country, we have an innovation strategy and vision with different pillars, focusing on technology of transport, of healthcare, of tourism, of education, etc. And each Emirates created an enabler to be able to fulfill this vision. Abu Dhabi, they have Masdar City, Hub 71, Dubai, they have Dubai Future Foundation, Ras Al Khaimah, we have this gentleman here. So Sharjah is one of the enablers to help accelerate the pace of innovation. How do we do this? Mainly for four things. One, development of infrastructure, both hard infrastructures, labs, building, etc., and soft infrastructure, funds, legislation, policies that enable things to move. The second thing is development of human capital, scientists, innovators, entrepreneurs. Third is commercializing technologies, creating the right environment that allows technology to scale, to commercialize, and last but not least, creating ventures based on technology that can create economic impact, that can create opportunities, jobs, etc. So these are basically the context in which we work.
Wonderful. Paul, if I could also bring that question to you and try and understand how the India-UAE corridor is becoming the hotbed for tech-driven innovations right now and what's happening at the current stage.
Yeah, I mean, His Excellency hit the nail on the head from a talent perspective. That's really the answer to your India-UAE corridor. It's where's all the talent going to come from? Where are all the builders going to come from? Where are the people with the great ideas going to come from? They're not just going to come from the UAE, obviously, they need to come from around the world. And so these corridors are critical to drive success here, whether they're coming here to start companies or they're coming here to join companies and help build them. I think that corridor is an essential piece of the puzzle. I think the bigger innovation question, I would just add maybe a couple of things. There's nothing particularly unique about a place, right? When you think about Silicon Valley, what's special about it? Nothing really. I mean, it's a nice place. It's pretty trees. It's close to San Francisco and San Jose. But other than that, there's nothing really special. So why do tech entrepreneurs in the US all flock there? Why do they all go there? The anecdote I tell is Sand Hill Road is the main thoroughfare in Silicon Valley. It's where almost all the big investors, big VCs, big companies have some presence. At the end of this road, there's a Starbucks. If you're a savvy entrepreneur and you're looking to raise money for your startup, you could knock on the doors of the VCs and hope that they take your cold call or they take your meeting and you can pitch them. But the really smart ones, they park themselves in the Starbucks because they know eventually the partner at Sequoia or the partner at Benchmark will eventually walk through the place. It's something when I was building startup ecosystems in Canada, I coined this term, density of intensity. Silicon Valley has density of intensity. It means it's inevitable you're going to bump into other smart people doing great things, other investors, other people who can support you, other people who can help you. And I think as a free zone, as a government, our job is to create density of intensity. It's to create the environment for those interactions to happen.
Now, His Excellency, if I could ask you, especially on SRTIP, how that is creating an ecosystem where global startups can actually truly thrive.
We, of course, try to be creative in the way we do things. I mean, one area is, of course, building partnership. And here I'm very proud to say that we have very strong relationship with India. We have a relationship with different states and cities in India, from Bangalore to Hyderabad to Kerala and other places. And this partnership is very important for us because through this partnership we identify projects, we identify technologies, we identify talents that we can work with. So this is one area. Of course, the second thing is creating the environment, the ecosystem that's allow technology to thrive. Density and proximity is very important. The fact that our park sits in the heart of the university city, the largest university city in the region, with more than 45,000 students, 2,000 PhDs, 22 education institutions, it creates a lot of opportunities for us to grow. Additionally, of course, the availability of resources. You need to have resources to be able to create, potential projects and opportunities. Yeah.
Paul, if you could highlight for us, where do you see the biggest gaps that exist today when we talk about for the India-UAE startup collaboration?
I don't know if there are obvious gaps in the sense that the corridor exists. There's plenty of Indian entrepreneurs and Indian companies that come and set up here, right? I don't think there are blockers that are preventing success here. I think part of it is there's never a situation where if you build it, they will come. Right? You can build the greatest free zone in the world with the greatest partnerships in the world and all the programs and all the support and everything. At the end of the day, it's rare that people will just show up, right? There needs to be active outreach, and I think this is something, as the UAE, I'll speak only for myself, we could be doing better, right? To actively reaching out, finding the best and brightest, the smartest entrepreneurs, the people who are looking for a global jumping off point, right? A platform in the UAE where they can serve the global market much more easily. And actively courting those people. I think there is some seduction required. There's a winning of hearts and minds and an awareness that we haven't won that battle yet. So I don't think it's a blocker because, again, we're seeing the traffic, but we could definitely be doing better to actively court the best.
Absolutely. His Excellency, how important is this cross-border funding right now when we talk about scaling tech ventures between the two nations?
I think it's very important. I think, of course, as we know, there is a big sovereign funds partnership between UAE and India. And these are things working very well in strategic projects. But on the lower scale, let's say, I think it's very important that our VCs and our funding agencies manage to structure something that really fits for purpose and that can benefit everyone. And I think this is something that I agree with Paul, needs to be done more. So we democratize the funding activities, and it's not only sits at a very sovereign strategic part, but we actually go one level down and we connect the funding agencies in more solid structure. And I think this is also the role where government can play in structuring this, like Ministry of Economies, investment agencies, things like that.
Fair point. Paul, if I could ask you on the role of Web3, AI, deep technology as well, how can all of these play a big role when we talk about the Indo-UAE innovation?
Yeah, obviously, these are the hot focus areas, right? This is where we're seeing the most excitement, the most hype. This is what the dollars are chasing.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs are chasing these opportunities. And so no question that governments in this region are all trying to court those industries, because this is high-value jobs, high-value talent, high-value companies, right? These are the kinds of industries you want in your emirate or in your country. Where I start to worry a little bit is if you're constantly just chasing a trend, right? Because I joke about this sometime. I know I have plenty of investor and VC friends.
Yes.
Some portion of them, 3 years ago, were Web3 investors, and then for a year they were gaming investors, and now they're AI investors. And so sometimes I think it's not good enough just to pay lip service to that. It's not good enough just to say, right, if we say we're the Web3 free zone, we can't be saying that just because we think this is hyped and hot, right? There has to be substance to that. What does that actually mean? Do we understand the specific challenges facing Web3 companies or AI companies? Because they're different. Do we understand what those companies need? What kind of partnerships they're looking for? What are the funding sources for those specific industries or subsectors? What language do we speak? Because if I talk to a gaming company, they want publishers. They need publishing support. And there's tons of gaming companies in India, right? This is a huge industry, booming industry in India. But they're looking for publishing support. They don't care about the VCs. They don't need VCs. They need publishers. The AI companies, Well, their competitors are raising billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. You need expensive compute time. Your needs are different. The language you speak is different. Your problems are different. And so it's not good enough in my mind just to say, well, we're this or we're that, or we're chasing this trend or we're that trend. Are we actually walking the walk, right? Do we actually understand if we're saying we're going after this kind of company, if we want to attract this kind of company, do we really understand what they need?
Absolutely. His Excellency, what about the regulatory frameworks? Do you think that have evolved over time between both the nations when it comes to supporting such innovations, technology, maybe even supporting ease of doing business for startups? How are you looking at that?
I think in the UAE, we have the instruments to test all kind of technology. So you have within the Prime Minister Office something called Regulab, where we are allowed to test all kind of new technologies. The park also, one of its mandate is to become a sandbox or Regulax for new technologies, whether you're talking about drones or 3D technologies or flying cars or whatever. So we are tasked to do that, and this is, I think, one of the things, I guess, it really differentiates UAE from the rest of the world, is the speed of adopting new technologies and actually walking the talk, because we are not only, adopting policies, but we are making funds around it, we are creating the whole business models around it. So I think this is something that definitely with India we can do. I'm very proud actually to also note an example with an Indian company that we will hopefully inaugurate next week, which is an amazing company that they create now electronics for and they test and create electronics for automotive industry. And right. This will be opening at the park, and we will be testing all kind of electronics for automotive, but this is only the start. We're going to oil and gas and others. So places like us, I was asking them, is one reason that why they end up with us is because we try these sort of things. Of course, it's a big challenge. I have a lot of stories with this because I attracted really interesting companies from cars that they move in solar, which was big trends, to hanging trains, to flying cars, and they all like, how can I describe them? Really dreams. But when they go down, and most of them they go down, the people in this region are not used for this, But this is part of the process. So the point I'm trying to make, we in the UAE now have the mindset and the design to test these type of technologies, and the government has the regulations to support it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Paul, can I ask you, this would be helping a lot of people who are actually looking to be part of this kind of an innovation hub that we are talking about. What does it take for an innovation hub to really be a great magnet for both talent and capital?
It's a great question. That's kind of my whole job, is to figure that out. I think there's one thing that is often overlooked that is maybe the most powerful thing. And it's really success. I know that doesn't make sense at face value, but success begets success. And when you want to build an ecosystem, when you want to build a hub, again, a hub that has density, a hub that has weight, where people are drawn to it without much effort, it's about elevating the success stories that come out of that place and making sure the success stories that come out of that place essentially reinvest in that place. And if you look at any great startup ecosystem, whether it's Silicon Valley, whether it's Austin, Texas, it doesn't matter where we go in the world, they're all started, you can point to the one big success story that was elevated from the beginning. So Silicon Valley, you have Fairchild Semiconductor and Intel. And the talent that created those big successful companies came back, reinvested in other companies, invested in other entrepreneurs in the region. It's elevating the success stories, right? Really helping people, it sounds cheesy, but helping people to achieve their dream and then putting that on a pedestal and shouting it to the world. Here's what was done here. That's the lightning rod. That's the magnet that brings people, that gets that pump sort of started. But you still have to get all the nuts and bolts right. You still need all the things His Excellency has, right? You still need the talent, you still need the partnerships, you still need the academic links, you still need all of these things. There's no one silver bullet, but if you ask me what's most important, it's elevating the success stories, because that is what becomes the big draw.
Perfect. His Excellency, what about the public and private partnership when it comes to creating such innovation hubs, tech centers for the future, both in India and UAE? What is it that your conversations have been around this space?
I think PPP is very important because I think it's one of the tools that also is enablers. And one of the mechanisms that enable this to happen. I think, as I said, the example that I just mentioned now, of course, it's a private investment, but they are working with the government to produce something, hopefully. So I think it's a mechanism that is important, of course, for strategic also projects like in transport, for example, and other. But it's an important, I think, mechanism.
Paul, I want to understand from you, what is the advice that you'd like to give to probably early stage founders, both in India and the UAE as well, when it comes to tapping such opportunities?
Advice to early stage founders in general or tapping opportunities in the UAE? Because in general, my advice always is don't do it. It's a lifetime of misery, is what I can guarantee as a startup founder. Look, the advice is pick the place where building your business is going to create the least amount of friction, right? Building the business is hard enough. Whatever it's AI, it's crypto, it doesn't matter what the sector is, building something from zero is extremely difficult to begin with. Pick the place that reduces those pain points and is as frictionless as possible. Nothing's perfectly frictionless, but as frictionless as possible, because you want to focus your time, your effort on driving the business, on achieving the big picture vision, and not on the nuts and bolts day-to-day, tax this, is the right talent here, is there a regulator here that will help me, right? Like, you don't want to have those headaches. Anywhere that eliminates those headaches, and I think the UAE, and the results back it up, the UAE there's really no better place in the world than to do that, and there's no better place in the world that reduces those friction points. So my advice would be pick the place based on that, but go in with eyes wide open that this is a tough and long journey, regardless of where you decide to go.
Okay. His Excellency, I want to understand from you, what is that one message that you'd like to drive to India, to the government, to the startup founders, to the private players who are already building big tech and who are already investing there, to collaborate with the UAE? What are the opportunities that they should be seeking at this point in time? Where is it? And why do you think now is the right time?
I mean, when I don't know if it's a dream or a wish I have. We grew up with Indian here, and we've seen the old generation of Indians, how they are connected to the UAE. But I wonder about the young generation. I don't think the young generation of India, I'm talking about entrepreneurs and business professionals, I think it's the same for us as well. They know each other. And I think it's important, I think, for both government to come and structure a program that really connect the talented stars of India, entrepreneurs, to the talent stars of the UAE, and the talented professional of India, young people, both male and female, to the same in UAE. And I think this is how we will cement the future, because I think the mindset and the has changed in the young generation. And before it was natural connection, Today it's I think it needs to be orchestrated, and I think this is something is missing. I had this idea more than 4 years ago. I wanted really to make it happen because I think it's important to really cement. There's an example between there's a German Marshall German Marshall Fund program cementing talents development between US and Europe. I think we need to do something between UAE to start and India, but also the GCC and India. I think it's very important that we connect the talents in both sides, I think.
Paul, if I could ask you as well, what is the most exciting thing that you are really looking at when it comes to future collaborations between India and the UAE on tech?
I have a show on CNBC where I talk about the gaming industry. So gaming is near and dear to my heart. I think the opportunities there, and we've already seen, the The reason I came to Dubai initially was the Dubai government wanted my help to figure out what they should be doing around gaming, and I spent time in Abu Dhabi helping them figuring out what they should be doing around gaming, and in Saudi Arabia helping them. So gaming, there's lots of excitement around it in the region, but almost all of the talent, almost all the development talent, almost all of the ideas, almost all of the horsepower is sitting in India. And so I think there's a massive opportunity as the UAE to tap into that and bring that here, maybe even bigger today than AI or Web3, potentially, just because of the size of the existing industry in India. Also, the player base, the user base in India for gaming is also large. So you have a built-in market there, but the UAE can be the launch pad or the platform where you build the business and still be able to serve both the Indian market and the global market. So I see gaming as maybe the most exciting from an India-UAE standpoint. But in general, the region, and not just the UAE, fundamentally is talent-starved. Like the ambitions, I always think ambition and talent have to be at the same level. And we're seeing this in Saudi Arabia, where you have huge ambition, but nowhere near the kind of talent and the quantity of talent you need to actually execute on that ambition. This is something we don't, I think, a place we don't want to end up in the UAE, and something we need to actively be thinking about and actively be chasing.
What are the big challenges right now that you feel, this space is facing at this point in time, and how should we address it?
The gaming space or innovation in general? This is not necessarily unique to this region, but early stage dollars for most startups is relatively easy. Meaning you can raise some money from friends and family to get your business off the ground, or you can bootstrap, or you can develop something with some friends. AI tools are making coding easier and easier to build something that you can show people. The late stage funding in the UAE is also plentiful, right? You have huge sovereigns, you have very large investors, people who are ready to write $50 million checks, $100 million checks. The challenge is there's this big gap between those 2 points, where a startup has to either survive long enough to get big enough to get the big check, and that survival is not always obvious, or they need to hope to raise essentially what we call like a Series A or Series B, like an early stage funding round that isn't your seed or pre-seed round. That universe of Series A and Series B investors is too small in this region. There's just not enough dollars chasing that segment of the ecosystem. So some of the problems for startups here are still structural, right? You still may have to go to the US to raise dollars. You still may have to look to government programs, accelerators, to bridge that gap. That, I think, is a challenge that will be solved, but will take some time.
Absolutely. But His Excellency, if you could also help us understand, just 2 minutes to go and we'll try to wrap up ASAP. When worldwide we are saying shifting technologies, right now US projected that we have created, something like a Gen AI, Open AI, everything that is, for the future. Billions of dollars were pouring in. At the same time, China comes in with a fraction of cost and says that, we've created a much faster product than you in a fraction of cost. So, what are the things that you're really looking at there? Because right now people thought that only the talent remained in one space. But then when you look at it, when it's available at a fraction of cost at other places, how does one really go about it and understand what can be really the future?
I think for the UAE, we have always been very good in working with everyone and exploring the opportunities with all, left and right, So I think you have to examine all these available technologies and see what suits you. But in this sphere is changing rapidly, day by day, and technologies are transforming. So it's normal to go and explore wherever technology suits you more. But the UAE, as a country, I think, well established with its connection to leading places like US, India, China, Europe when it comes to technology, and you see a big investment in these fields.
Paul, if you could add to that and also let me know that, something like a deep tech and such kind of technologies, do you see them evolving even from Middle East and Southeast Asian countries like us?
Yeah, there's one thing, I have two conflicting thoughts, two thoughts that are at odds with each other. Having been doing tech for 25 years and building tech companies for 25 years, one thing I've learned is it's almost never the best funded startup that wins. Having the most money isn't a guarantee of success. And again, we're seeing this play out in some ways in real time, right? In certain areas, Saudi Arabia is doing well. In certain areas, they're falling flat on their face. And so just having more dollars to throw at the problem sometimes makes an entrepreneur, a startup, lazy, complacent, and not looking to always be on the offensive, right? When you have lots of resources, you're defending. You're playing defense. When you have almost nothing, you're always playing offense. You're going in, 2 swords, no shield. So I'm not surprised that we will see small upstarts, whether it's from China, from India, that maybe are more resource constrained, beat big guys with much more resources. In my world, this is totally normal. And I like to see this. This is good. This is good for the ecosystem. Now, the really big problems, because AI is one of those really deep tech, big problems, right? Building these models sometimes requires huge resources. I don't know if it's government's role to really be funding that, right? I believe in building financially sustainable ecosystems, not having governments throw endless amounts of money at problems. And so my concern is, I'd rather, if you're asking me where should the government dollars go, should it go to solve these big problems or to build competitors to these big problems? My view is, let them play to foster the small guys who are going to go beat the big guys on less resources, rather than throw big dollars to try and match the big problems. The other point that I have, that's conflicting with this somewhat is, I never worry about people copying me. Right? The China DeepSeek copying OpenAI, is it a copy? Is it just as good? In the world I come from, if someone's copying me, which happens 100% of the time, it means I always am at least 6 months ahead. I always have at least a 6 months lead because it takes time to copy. And the secret to winning is just always being one step ahead. This is why small groups of people with good ideas win. It takes time to copy. You're always one step behind if you're just the copier. And so this is, that makes me encouraged that it doesn't really matter what China does, what any other country does. The most innovative companies will win in the end.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Paul, and thank you so much, His Excellency, for all your insights there.